Hi, and welcome back to What Was the Score, a sports history podcast. It's me, Jamie, and today we're going to talk about social media and the way that social media and sport have developed and the relationship has developed between them. So, social media is a platform for everyone to praise, criticise, and debate sports, perhaps for good, perhaps otherwise. It's used to create narratives, and we see that often within the NBA, within football, or of fans of clubs really getting behind or turning on a player. Now, of course, this is really significant because Jim Morrison once said, whomever controls the media controls the mind. So if we're talking about dates, in 1997, Google is registered, 2005, YouTube made, 2006, Facebook made public, and in 2010, Facebook buys Instagram and Twitter buys Vine. And now we're in this position that we are today with so many different platforms. And today I'm being joined by Mike Tuck. Now, Mike has played for Sheffield since 2009 from Toronto, Canada. He captains the Sheffield Sharks. They've got 4 championships, most recently in 2016, in which he took home the MVP. You've represented Canada and England at international level, and you are now one of the faces of the Sky BBL production. Mike, thank you for coming on today.
Man, what an intro. Thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So, let's get straight into it. Obviously, if you don't mind me mentioning your age, you're 37 now, which means that you've seen throughout your playing career social media not exist to where it is today. So what's your relationship with social media like? What ones do you use?
Yeah, it was kind of funny when you were going through the timeline of Google and YouTube, and it was like, I remember all that like it was yesterday. I'm sure some of your listeners weren't even born yet, but yeah, I mean, it's something that, I've seen grow since I was a kid. And like, I've told this story many times. When I was a kid in high school in Canada, we didn't, Google was around, but we didn't have YouTube and all that kind of thing. And I still remember me and my dad making copies of one of my game tapes on VHS to mail down to universities in America, and DVDs to mail down. So I think,
Crazy.
The kids today, like, you don't know how easy you have it, because you can literally just upload a video straight from your phone to YouTube, and all of a sudden, it can be seen around the world, and coaches have access to all these players that, back in the day they didn't have access to. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen growing up through, just internet and social media, is that, all these players now that, they used to say if you're good enough, they'll find you. Well, now they've made it a lot easier for them to find us. But I've had social media, for a long time. My school was one of the first schools to get Facebook. Originally, Facebook was just on the Harvard.edu, and then they opened it up to a bunch of schools on the East Coast that had a .edu. So Loyola were my school. We had a Loyola.edu. So like I was within the first few thousand people to have Facebook or get on Facebook.
Well, that's
and then,
your CV, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I mean, in terms of today, I'm pretty much on, on every platform. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. There's so many now. I think that's the biggest thing throughout my career is just seeing all the different platforms evolve. Back in the day, it was MySpace, and then MySpace went down, and there was a rise of Facebook. And then when I first got to England, it was pretty much, everyone just had Facebook, and then Twitter obviously just kind of blew up. And then Instagram came. And now, Snapchat and TikTok are like, the two newest, but TikTok, obviously being the newest one, blowing up. But yeah, I mean, as an athlete, and to give advice to the younger guys, it's important that you're on these platforms, just so your voice is heard. And I think it's, and from a PR perspective, it's good to get on there, and teams like to see that, especially if you have a big following. That all weighs into certain teams' decisions and stuff. Helps boost the PR and the marketing side for everybody. So yeah. I'm on pretty much all the platforms.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the recruiting process there, because Ben Allison, who's from Brighton, played for Brighton Bears. He also played for Davidson with Steph Curry, and obviously that dates it around 2008. He wrote a book about getting to America called Reaching the Rim, in which he said he had to record himself play, burn it onto a DVD, and then mail it to loads of different American coaches. Of course, nowadays we use social media, and everyone knows about, well, everyone knew about Zion Williamson before he was 14, 15. And just quickly, do you think that's good for the recruitment process and the players, or do you think that could be perceived as a negative?
I think it's good in the sense that you can make it from pretty much any corner of the globe, you know. But I also think that there's a lot of viral videos that, you have one good dunk and you're going to blow up. It doesn't exactly mean that you're a good basketball player. So there is a lot of hype around certain players that probably shouldn't receive it. But then at the same token, I think it's a good thing because, the more guys out there, the wider the reach, we're going to get a stronger talent group overall.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right with that one good dunk, because Dirk had one whilst playing for you a couple of years ago, didn't he? I can't remember who that was.
Yeah, but Dirk's got the full package.
Oh, 100%, 100%. We saw that on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, that dunk went viral. That dunk was on, top 10 Sports Center plays of the week. And if you rewound it 10 years ago, that probably maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's no way that would have happened. But because that happened, whatever it was, 3-4 seasons ago,
Yeah,
it's
especially coming out of England too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's the power and the reach of social media.
So if we're thinking about how we can use social media and the reach it had, of course, Shaquille O'Neal was one of the first ones to get Twitter going. He was one of the early ones on board with Twitter. And of course, Shaq himself has been very critical of Rudy Gobert, for example, Donovan Mitchell recently. And social media is such a platform for news and criticism. And when was the first time do you really think that you noticed that social media had this darker side to it almost?
I mean, Twitter was probably started, what, I think it was like 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. And it was different from what it is today. When it first started, it was kind of more like live blogging your life, right? Whereas now it's more of like news and official announcements and then bigger picture blog posts and then you have all like the gifs and stuff. But along with that, obviously you've got like the trolls, and then you've got a lot of criticism and stuff like that. So I don't know, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 2012, around there, like when I kind of started noticing, okay, like people are not only using Twitter for good and positive things, but it's also like, it gives a lot of people a voice, it gives anybody a voice really. And the other thing is it makes, big companies or, celebrities or athletes very accessible. So, you can't just scream at them from the stands anymore. You can just get on your phone and all of a sudden be in a Twitter war with somebody.
That's entirely it. I think that word accessibility is the right one there. Everyone has a voice, You think about perhaps, I don't know, Malice in the Palace in 2004. Would that have happened in today's era? Because everyone almost has, you never see interaction like that at games anymore. And perhaps that's because of social media and people getting it out there.
Yeah, 100% social media, but also the rise of the smartphone and camera phones. I mean, everyone would have, all those people involved in that, although I think they all were convicted or found,
or something. Yeah.
It would have been, within 2 seconds, the police would have, identified who they are, through their Facebook page or their Twitter, and it would have just been walking.
Yeah.
And then that also puts in the back of your mind as a person walking around, it holds people more accountable these days. You're not, there's not that, you're not going to be unidentified. You have that accountability factor. So you're not as willing to just go out there and do something wild because, you could be named and shamed quite easily.
definitely. And it's ironic you mentioned that about being identified, because I don't know if you know, but Ron Artest actually went after the wrong guy. He didn't get the right guy. He didn't get the guy that threw the cup. So, well, maybe Ron
Yeah.
Artest could have used social media then.
And there's a great video actually on YouTube where he's friends with that guy now, and he's been over to his house. Yeah, he's just like they've completely squashed the beef. So it's
Oh,
pretty
that's
funny
good
all
to
these
hear.
years later.
Yeah, well, I listened to him talk with Stephen Jackson and Matt Barnes about it, and obviously Stephen Jackson was there too, and they seem to have moved past it, and yeah, but Jermaine O'Neal, he got involved definitely. If you saw him punch the guy, and for those that listen that aren't aware of this, it was the end of a Pistons Pacers game, and it was the game was done. Pacers are up 10, about 45 seconds left. Ben Wallace goes for a dunk, and Ron Artest fouls him from behind. And it wasn't that hard of a foul. Would you? Well, let's have a professional's opinion. Was it a hard foul?
I mean, probably not warranted of what it all turned into, but it was the cup flying in from the stands that really sparked everything.
Yeah. So Ben Wallace proceeded to push Ron Artest. Ron Artest decided to lay on the announcer's table. Someone threw a beer at Ron Artest, and Ron Artest thought he knew who it was, and he was in the stands. Pacers were in the stands, Pistons were in the stands, and Jermaine O'Neal, who was 6'11", 275 pounds, had a full sprint run up at someone, hit them, and fractured one of their vertebrae, I do believe. Which there's very little footage of that one. Perhaps which helps Jermaine O'Neal out a bit. And you mentioned earlier, it's about getting yourself out there, making yourself accessible. How have you personally used social media to develop a brand for yourself?
I mean, I have to admit, like in the early days, I didn't really want to be out there. I didn't really want to. But as an athlete, and then being one of the faces of my team, and then also having like little kind of side sponsorship deals and endorsement stuff, kind of forces you into that situation. So I kind of just started embracing it, and just being more dedicated towards it. And I had a deal with a supplement company, so that forced me to start a Facebook athlete page instead of just my normal profile, and little things like that. And then I also work within the front office of the Sharks now, and I along with a great team of volunteers, I handle some of their social media. So just kind of learning about the whole side of things like that just helped me develop all that thing. But yeah, I mean, it's important to put yourself out there. I think whether you like it or not, teams are going to have a look at your social media to see what you're doing, to gauge what you are as a person. And for me, I always try and put out a game day post to not only promote myself but also promote our team and let people know the Sharks are playing, and get them to tune in, and just throw a little bit more traffic that way.
Yeah, and especially with England, getting that traffic, as you say, is so important. But if you could have, I did. This question's out of the blue for you. If you could have one of your career moments that wasn't on social media, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it'd be hard to see it now, but I actually was a pretty high flyer when I was younger. I actually had some bounce. And when I was in high school, I had all types of really good dunks, like dunking on people and all that, that there wasn't those cameras around it. Like the kids today now, there's always a camera guy down on the baseline at every game, no matter where you are. There's always somebody filming it. So I wish that back then I had a little bit more coverage of some of the things I was doing back in high school. I think now everything's pretty well documented. Throughout my pro career, a lot of stuff is on film or pictures and all that kind of stuff. But it's more early before this whole wave hit that I wish there was more of that content out there.
Yeah, definitely. And so with regards to sports history, of course, social media is so amazing because we now have so many different types of media and mediums to record what happens, to gauge people's views, to gauge everything that happens within the discipline. Of course, recently, how do you think perceptions towards social media have changed, or do you think they have changed at all?
From when? From back in the day till now?
Yeah, how have you seen that develop?
I think it just depends on the platform. Like before, we were talking about Twitter, how Twitter kind of started off as one thing, but then kind of ended up as another. I mean, you look at Instagram as well. Instagram kind of started off as like a photo app where you could put different filters on it, and now it's just grown into this whole media beast where you're not only you're posting photos, but you're posting videos, you're posting photoshopped images, infographics, curated content. I think just there's such a bigger focus on all of it now. I mean, even if you look at like 5 years ago, a team would put out a score image the day after the game, or they put out some highlights, a day or a couple of days after a game. Now everything is just like so much quicker. Like,
Quarter by quarter.
yeah, you're putting up every score by the quarter. You're putting it on, for example, on the Sharks, we've got somebody putting out highlight plays, live as action's happening, like, a couple seconds after the play is done. So everything is a lot more immediate now. And a lot of people it's fun to watch the race to be the first one to get news out there. You
Mm,
see that like on a higher level in the NBA, but and in bigger leagues. But even in the BBL, there's all those little fan pages that are always trying to be the first to
yeah.
drop the note on whatever. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that everything is a lot more focused now. And everybody is taking social media a lot more serious. Whereas before it was kind of just like something you did on the side.
Mm,
Whereas now it's like, that we have all these free channels to market through, and there's dedicated teams towards it, and every team has a photographer and a videographer at every game. So much more, the attention to detail is there.
mm. And of course, you're entirely right by saying it's a free medium. But for a lot of people, you build your brand, you earn money. It's becoming a viable source of income.
But yeah, I mean, guys are getting paid to post.
And there you go.
That's been around for years now, and that's another thing about the athletes is building your personal brand.
Mm,
Making sure that you're building up your followers, you're engaging with your followers, you're building up a certain type of audience, a target audience, and then that can align with a certain brand's ideals and the audience that they're looking to hit. So um, it's very interesting. It's a lot different from when I was younger. The access that people have to these
mm.
brands and stuff now is incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, it's a two-edged sword for many people. It helps, the AAU circuit. You think of players like Mikey Williams or Julian Newman that have had a whole career before they've reached 18 due to social media. And of course, we're starting to see the come down of that with certain players. I don't want to talk, be disrespectful to Julian Newman, but of course, he's not really living up to what people expected him to be as of yet. But it's a
Yeah, that's one of those guys I was kind of thinking in the back of my head earlier when we were talking about viral clips
mm,
that build up certain people to what they're not.
yeah.
You can see a 3-second clip of a kid, but let me see a whole game. Can
Mm,
can can this guy play on both ends of the floor? Can he run a team?
yeah.
So yeah, that, I mean, but that's the beauty of it too, is that it will eventually expose people.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And you've hit the nail on the head with that. So if we kind of like take a step away from social media for a moment and have a bit more of a look at you, obviously Toronto, Canada, Loyola, Sheffield. What is your favourite Yorkshireism or Sheffieldism or favourite thing about Sheffield? Favourite saying, food, anything?
Favorite saying?
Mm,
Um, well, I mean, Yorkshire in general has its own language. For people not coming here, it's pretty funny because I've been producing a series of videos for the Sharks where one of them is like the Yorkshire slang quiz. So there's all these different things, but I mean, a up duck is always comes to mind when I think of Yorkshire. But I mean, I mean, I love Sheffield. They're great people here, very endearing people. The Sharks fans have always been great. Um, I don't know. I guess a chip buddy. There you
Yeah.
go. That's my favorite Yorkshire thing, a chip
Have you
buddy.
had scraps?
Yeah, I've had scraps on the fish and chips. Those are
Yeah,
good as well. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a great place. I love Sheffield. You know, the people here, and the city in general, like just very vibrant city, lots going on. And then we got the Peak District right on our doorstep. So I love going out for hikes in the peaks as well.
Mm,
So it's a great spot to be.
mm. Now, I imagine if there's any Sharks fans listening, you're going to lose some of them with this next question. But Sheffield United or Sheffield Wednesday?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with this is a tough question for me
Mm,
because I've been to a lot of both of their games. I couldn't just pledge allegiance to strictly one, but I have been to more United games. And United, when I first came to Sheffield, we won the cup my first year, and I got to walk out on the middle of the pitch with the cup my
there you
first
go.
year in Sheffield. So
Yeah.
that always resonated with me. So I guess I'm leaning more towards being a Blade.
Mm. Well, definitely. There you go. That's good a reason as any. Um, One more on the BBL. Of course, I'm talking to Paul Nicholson soon from Plymouth. And Plymouth, when they play Glasgow, that can't be fun. So, what is your least favourite away game?
Oh well, you've just said the two teams right there. Plymouth or Glasgow, especially if we have to play them on a Sunday because we got to get up. We've got to be up on the bus by 8 a.m. or whatever it is because the games are typically earlier in the afternoon. So I think Plymouth is a little bit longer for us. I think it's about 5.5, whereas Glasgow is about 5. But those are just long days, you know.
Mhm.
We have had times where we will stay over the night before or after, but typically we usually just do it all in one day. So that's a 10-hour round trip
Yeah,
on a bus. So
yeah,
those are not fun days, and that 5 hour on the way back feels more like
feel
20
it.
hours if you lose. So you always want to win those games because they're tough, and it's just tough, getting off a 5 hour bus ride, walking into an arena, and you got to get those legs going. So those are the two toughest trips for us.
Mm. I
But in
know what you're
terms of
saying.
road trips, I think Sheffield is the most. I think we're probably the most blessed team because we're like right in the middle of the country
Yeah,
essentially in terms of that. So like we're not too far. Other than those trips, that we're not too far from
you're all
anywhere
right.
else.
Yeah.
About
I
three
know what
three
you were
and a half.
saying. I know what you're saying with the long distance ones. I was representing my university once, and it was a 3 hour trip to Staffordshire and back, which is that's all right. But it was an 8 o'clock tip off. And we didn't get back until about 1:30. And even then, they dropped me off about half an hour from where I lived. So it was a long day.
There you go. Yeah, I've had that. We've had Friday nights in Glasgow, and you don't get back till 2 a.m.
Mm,
So those are
very
rough
long.
nights. Make sure
Yeah.
you have an off the next day.
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I don't have the choice. Um, so here's one that I'm going to ask everyone, and it's a question that my dad and I have this debate: is motor racing a sport?
Is motor racing a sport? Well, it's that's a tough question because would you call a car driver an athlete?
Mm. Well, that's the argument because of course you could say
But
the same for horse racing.
yep, yeah. But I would say a jockey is more of an athlete than a guy who sits in a car. But the actual action of the cars racing, yeah, I'm going to call it a sport. I'll call it a sport because it draws the attention of millions of fans, and they play it live on TV and people are cheering it on. So yeah, it's a sport.
There you go.
It's a good sport to be in. You can make a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Okay, so the next 5 years for Mike Tuck, what do they look like?
Interesting. Very
Mm,
good question.
thank you.
I haven't made a firm decision on retiring anytime soon. I still feel like I've got a lot left to give, and I still got a few more miles in the tank. That's for sure. Um, uh, in terms of off the court stuff, I've been working in the front office of the Sharks now for 3 years as their marketing manager, and really enjoying doing that. There's a lot of good things happening with the Sharks right now. They've made huge developments in the direction projection of opening their own arena. So that's, very exciting times for them. I've also been doing Sky Sports, NBA and BBL now, and very excited to see what's in store for the future of the BBL and Sky Sports. They've signed a 2-year deal with them so far, and then they're obviously going to renegotiate after that 2 years is over. So I'm hoping that they look for a more long-term deal that's more substantial. And I'd love to be part of that broadcast team. It's been great being involved with that so far, and I think that will just only go from strength to strength. As the longer that it's on Sky, the more eyes we're going to get on it, and the bigger audience will build. So
definitely.
Yeah, so that's the plan for right now. Hopefully just keep doing the TV stuff, keep working behind the scenes for the Sharks. But you never know. Who knows what's in store? The future. I've had I've been very lucky over my career to have quite a few things. Just lucky things happen to me, and things that are fallen into my lap. So you'll never know what's going to happen around the corner. So we'll see.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so that wraps up the main bit of our talk, and I want to end it with a little bit of fun, and we're going to do a starting five. So if you've ever listened to JJ Redick's podcast, The Old Man and the Three, they do a draft at the end of theirs. So we're going to pick a starting five of social media personalities. It could be of any size, any distinction. What are you thinking?
So, just right. I didn't know we were doing this. So this is very unplanned. Well, I mean, we talked about him earlier. I guess you got to go. Shaq is my center.
Yeah.
Shaq's a good one. He's always out there. Is this back and forth or just all me right now?
Back and forth if you want. I had Lethal Shooter down as my first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like him. Yeah, he's good. I don't know. I'm gonna have to just go all like NBA guys.
Yeah.
Maybe Richard Jefferson.
Yeah.
I don't always agree with what he's saying, but he's got a big following, and he's always out there.
On that line, I had Rex Chapman down too, because Rex Chapman's been doing the Block or Charge series for a while now. He's been in the league, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I also had the Professor down.
The Professor, he's a good. I mean, he's built a huge following since the M1 days. He's absolutely. He's probably the most successful out of all of them. Oh man, you got me stuck here off the top of my head. Let's go Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Just because he's always getting ragged on.
Yeah. A little bit of pity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's Filet, the guy that Mr. Skip Through the Lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gone small thus far. But yeah. And then the only other names I had down were you and I, because
of course.
Yeah. And then I had Alicia Day down, who doesn't play basketball. Her Instagram, she's a fashion model, but she's 6'6". So I thought that's as good a player as any. And her Instagram handle is @tallswag. So yeah, I had a couple of names down, and
That's all swag.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think
you had me beat there, man. I think you had me beat. Anyways.
I think we could get a team going. It's
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so where can people find you, Mike?
So yeah, I'm across all platforms at MikeTuck15. Shoot me a follow along. I'm just trying to, I'll post out when I'm playing games and try and give people a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. Obviously, just signed up to TikTok, so I don't know what I'm doing, but we're getting there every day. And I said that I was going to try and post some more behind the scenes stuff, not only from the basketball team, but also behind the scene with Sky Sports. So shoot me a follow.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for listening to What Was the Score, the Sports History Podcast. Have a nice day and take care.